Hey everyone. Well, you know what day it is. On this day, 20 years ago, Revenge of the Sith was released in theaters. And to celebrate the film's 20th anniversary, this is my commentary on one of my favorite Star Wars prequels ever. Oh yeah, it's the GOAT. But anyway, before we begin the commentary, just want to say that Revenge of the Sith is currently available to stream on these platforms. You know where to stream them. Of course, if you're old fashioned like me, you can watch it on a video cassette or a DVD. But anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy my commentary companion of Revenge of the Sith. And may the Force be with you. Welcome to Commentary Companions. I'm your host, Tony Garcia, and today, to celebrate the film's 20th anniversary as it was released 20 years ago on this very day, May 19th, today I'm doing a commentary on Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Now, I have a total soft spot for this movie because one of the biggest reasons that I have such a sentimental soft spot for Revenge of the Sith is because, well, unlike all the other previous Star Wars films that I had seen on video cassette, Revenge of the Sith was the first Star Wars movie in which I ever saw a Star Wars film in a movie theater, which I think is such a big deal. That's how much of a soft spot I have for this Star Wars film. I was so hyped for it. Like, I remember just when they promoted it, it's like I really wanted to see this film, and I remember getting to watch it on a Saturday after it had premiered with my dad. It's like I even went so far as to take an early nap so that I could watch it late at around 10-ish to, watch it. And it was just one hell of an experience. I think I watched it around two or three or more times in theaters, which is how much I really liked that film. Even if it turned out very dark and emotional, but that's how much I really liked it because I love Star Wars. And if you notice my profile picture on YouTube, my YouTube profile picture consists of a picture of me with Hayden Christensen, the guy that played Anakin Skywalker in the Star Wars prequels. And yeah, he was the first official celebrity that I ever met. And I even got to tell Hayden when I met him at Emerald City Comic-Con back in 2022 that Revenge of the Sith was the first Star Wars movie I ever got to watch in a movie theater. That's how much of a fan I am, and I really do cherish that memory. Now, I have an interesting fact. The original cut to Revenge of the Sith was originally going to be over... It ran nearly 4 hours. 4 hours! And the opening battle and Palpatine's rescue alone ran over an hour. Could you imagine that if the original cut to Revenge of the Sith had been released in theaters? I mean, it sounds awesome. A nearly 4-hour Star Wars movie, but... I'm not sure if 8-year-old me would have been able to sit through a nearly 4-hour movie because 8-year-olds don't really have the patience for 3-hour movies. I don't know if 8-year-old me would be able to sit through Avengers Endgame or Zack Snyder's Justice League, but I, a guy in my mid-20s, is can sit through Zack Snyder's Justice League and 1980s horror documentaries. The way I see it, I mean, if I could sit through all this, I'm sure I could sit through the alleged 4-hour cut of Revenge of the Sith, and I'd be very open to it. But yeah, I did not know that it was over... It's like, this 1-hour cut of this rescue sounds cool. I can imagine there are fans who are mixing this footage with... the episodes of the final episodes of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. But yeah, it's like, this is where the fun begins. And I gotta say, I really do like this opening sequence of Anakin and Obi-Wan and the clones rescuing Palpatine. It really does feel like a Star Wars movie. And you might find this funny as well, because I'm going to be saying fun fact a lot. You could take a shot every time I say fun fact. Actually, don't play a drinking game every time I say fun fact. I'm not going to encourage alcoholism. In the opening sequence, when the second Separatist ship is destroyed, a piece of debris flies into the clone Star Destroyer that shot it. That piece of debris is a kitchen sink. It was put in there by Industrial Light and Magic as a joke from someone saying, "We're throwing everything in the sequence, including the kitchen sink." Yeah, that's pretty funny. Now, Hayden Christensen gained 24 pounds for this movie, and he did so by eating 6 meals a day. So we got buff. Now, the subtitle of Revenge of the Sith is actually based on an abandoned idea from George Lucas, because if you know the Star Wars trilogies in chronological order, you know that the sixth episode, Return of the Jedi, which was the third installment in the original trilogy, third and final installment, well, the subtitle Revenge of the Sith was originally, it was going to be, Return of the Jedi was going to be called Revenge of the Jedi for Episode 6. But George Lucas ended up abandoning that title, determining that revenge was not a suitable attitude for a Jedi. But since this film, however, is about the triumph of the Sith, revenge was entirely appropriate. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, revenge seems more like a Sith thing. I mean, even Darth Vader said in an episode of Star Wars Rebels, "Revenge is not the Jedi way." Now, much to my disappointment, every clone trooper in the film is CGI. Not a single real clone costume or helmet was featured in the movie, and that's a shame. I mean, it would have been cool to see Timwetta Morrison wearing a clone trooper outfit, but, I mean, it's still convincing CG. Now, there are over 2,200 visual effects shots in this movie, more than The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones combined. A New Hope only had 350 such shots. Yeah, nice shot, R2. We're in agreement, Obi-Wan. Boomy. Oop. And of course, there's always the running gag of the Star Wars characters always saying, "I have a bad feeling about this." If I remember correctly, I think this is the second time that Obi-Wan has said this. I mean, the first time he said it was in The Phantom Menace. So I think if I had a nickel for every time Obi-Wan Kenobi said, "I have a bad feeling about this," I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's strange that it's happened twice in the prequel trilogy. I mean, let's see. Anakin also said, "I have a bad feeling about this" in Attack of the Clones. And, who else has said it? Which characters have said, "I have a bad feeling about this" throughout the Star Wars films? Okay, so yeah. Luke Skywalker said it in A New Hope. Han Solo said it twice in New Hope and The Force Awakens. Leia said it in Empire Strikes Back. C-3PO in Return of the Jedi. And K2SO in Rogue One. And BB-8 said it in The Last Jedi. And of course, this is the first on-screen appearance of General Grievous. Now, of course, this actually isn't his first appearance. His first official appearance was actually in Star Wars Clone Wars, the traditionally animated micro series developed by Genndy Tartakovsky for Cartoon Network, and and that's where General Grievous made his first appearance. And in that cartoon, General Grievous was voiced by John DiMaggio, best known for voicing Bender on Futurama and Jake the Dog on Adventure Time. But I think one of my favorite voice performances that John DiMaggio has ever done would have to be as the Joker in Batman Under the Red Hood. But yeah, John DiMaggio was actually the first voice of General Grievous in Star Wars Clone Wars. But here, well, originally George Lucas wanted Gary Oldman, allegedly, to voice General Grievous in Revenge of the Sith, but I think due to this being a non-SAG production, they had to get a non-union actor to voice General Grievous. And in this movie, and onward, General Grievous was voiced by sound effects crewman Matthew Wood, who also played Bib Fortuna in The Phantom Menace, and also a cameo appearance in The Mandalorian. But yeah, Matthew Wood has voiced General Grievous and several other battle droids in many incarnations of the Star Wars prequels. Matthew Wood even reprised his role as General Grievous for the 3D animated series Star Wars The Clone Wars. But here, Matthew Wood doesn't voice any of the battle droids in Revenge of the Sith. They're actually provided by original sound effects supervisor Ben Burt, who has been with the Star Wars franchise since A New Hope. But yeah, I think it's also pretty funny how Ben Burt has been known for voicing robots, as he's also best known for voicing Wall-E in the titular Pixar movie as well, which I think is pretty cool. I mean, the dude is a sound effects master. You know what I mean? Quite an elevator ride. There's Palpatine rolling in the chair. I sometimes forget that Palpatine's first name is Sheev. That's spelled Sheev. Sheev Palpatine. But I can see why he prefers being called Palpatine. Could you imagine how awkward he feels every time someone calls him Sheev, just casually? Here's Dooku! Okay, that's clearly a CG leap, but it's a good CG leap. Yep, in the duel with Count Dooku, the imprisoned Palpatine originally had more dialogue, which he was to shout at Anakin. One of his lines pertained to Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, in which Palpatine exposed Dooku as paying the Tusken Raiders to kidnap, torture, and kill Shmi Skywalker. You know, Anakin's mom. And the thing is, Dooku was actually under orders by Palpatine to pay the Tusken Raiders to do this. So, yes, Palpatine was behind it, but technically it is not canon. Well, I believe it's canon. It's canon in my eyes, and it would kind of make for a cool what-if comic. But I got another funny story. It's like, the Star Wars prequels were my first introduction to Christopher Lee because, I hadn't really seen the Hammer horror films that Lee was best known for being in. But Count Dooku was my first introduction to Sir Christopher Lee, and a month after I watched, a month or two after I watched Revenge of the Sith, I watched Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and I remember recognizing Christopher Lee as Wonka's father. I even said he looks like Count Dooku because I could never forget that beard and that voice of his. All I can say is I wish that I could have met I wish that I could have met Christopher Lee. Rest in peace, Lee. I greatly miss him. Also, here's another fact. Originally, Dooku was supposed to beg for his life when Palpatine tells him to do it, but Christopher Lee actually convinced George Lucas to not have Dooku beg, which is actually it seemed in character. Yes, like not begging seemed perfectly in character for Count Dooku. I can imagine he'd be much more defiant. But yeah, talk about a brutal way to kill the character. I think he must have done this while on break from working on the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Because remember, Christopher Lee was best known for also portraying Saruman, the traitor in the Lord of the Rings films. I mean, there's more to that. Yep. I think that's the most subtle hint of what could have been, but didn't happen. Yep, well, that actually has a double meaning, as his fate will be the same as ours, as all three do eventually die, and two of them by Anakin's hands. Fire, fire! Sounds like a Muppet. And there's a signature Wilhelm scream. Yep, looks like you might need to take the stairs. Actually, are there stairs? That's not good. Could you imagine if they were too late with jumping? They could have gotten crushed, and well, insert the meme of the written and directed by George Lucas. Oop, they did. Oh my. Now, oh yeah, this is. I'm not gonna lie, the Ray Shields moment was kind of funny. It's... Any more bright ideas? I've got a few. Yeah, that's a bright idea. Nothing could possibly go wrong. Oh, there you are, R2. Yep, translation. Any more bright ideas? Like I said before. Yeah, I think I got a few. And I have to really respect the continuity of the Clone Wars cartoon from 2008 that canonically ties in with Revenge of the Sith because this is technically canonically the first time that General Grievous ever meets Anakin Skywalker. The crew from the Clone Wars cartoon knew because of this casual line of dialogue, they would have to pretty much Anakin Skywalker and General Grievous could not meet each other throughout the Clone Wars series. And after rewatching the Clone Wars cartoon, they do not meet, and I actually respect that this continuity that they do. I mean, although Obi-Wan has met Grievous many times in the cartoon, but I do think it's pretty cool that I think it's nice that they respected the continuity. And also, actually, the coughing that General Grievous lets out throughout the film was actually George Lucas coughing because he suffered a nasty cold while filming Revenge of the Sith, and he decided, I think I'll take advantage of this by putting that into Grievous, and so, that's George Lucas coughing whenever Grievous coughs. That's impressive. I don't get it. They're not supposed to feel anything. Why did the droid say ow? Now, of course, General Grievous's breathing problems in this movie, as well as his exposed gut sac, later exploited by Obi-Wan, were caused by his brief encounter with Mace Windu in the 2D Clone Wars cartoon. Mace Windu force-gripped Grievous as the General was making off with Palpatine. Unfortunately, this is no longer canon because of the 2008 series. Yeah, because he's more machine than anything, General Grievous doesn't have to worry about not breathing in space. Now, what species is General Grievous? I've always wondered. It's like, run for your lives! Yeah, General Grievous is a Kaleesh species. This was before it became a humanoid. This was before it became a cyborg. The Kaleesh were a reptilian humanoid species known for their warlike nature and fierce warrior culture, with a focus on close quarters combat, particularly with swords. The Kaleesh have scaly skin, long tusks, and large pointed ears. They also had extremely long nostrils that reached the lower part of their eyes, giving them a unique appearance. For their culture, the Kaleesh were deeply spiritual and warlike, with war considered an essential part of life. Yep, I think there might be a comic that explains how General Grievous became a cyborg, but General Grievous became a cyborg through a gradual process of cybernetic enhancements, either as a result of being manipulated by the Sith and Dooku, or as a result of his own choice to rival the Jedi and become a more powerful warrior. In Legends continuity, he was tricked into believing his injuries were caused by the Republic, and was then transformed into a cyborg by the Sith and Dooku. In the new canon, he volunteered for the modifications to become stronger and rival the Jedi, which makes sense. Alright, now you know. I think there might be a comic book that explains this. I like that the background music kind of shows hints of the Duel of the Fates. It's kind of cool that Anakin's call sign is Red 5, and that's the sign that Luke also uses during the Death Star battle. Red Leader was the call sign of Wedge Antilles during the Death Star battle in Return of the Jedi. And Wedge was portrayed by Ewan McGregor's uncle, Dennis Lawson. Now, one of the early concepts for General Grievous was a small child sitting on a floating chair guarded by two IG-88 droids from Empire Strikes Back. George Lucas rejected this look, as a child would not be taken seriously as the deadliest hand-to-hand fighter the galaxy has seen, which is how he wanted Grievous to be portrayed. Instead, part of the final look for General Grievous's face was inspired by the shape of a bathroom detergent spray nozzle. Now, Hayden Christensen's cockpit shots were filmed from just outside the front window of his Jedi fighter. When he put his feet in the proper position for operating the fighter, his knees covered up his face, so he actually had to stick his legs out the end of the fighter to get the proper shot. Now, Ewan McGregor had Lucasfilm make him a looped reel of all of Sir Alec Guinness's scenes from the original trilogy, so that he could study them and perfect both the accent and the pacing of his words belonging to Sir Alec Guinness. And, what I really like is that, Sir Alec Guinness, Ewan McGregor really did sound like a young Sir Alec Guinness, and this was a great way to introduce me to the actor, which is pretty cool. Ewan McGregor and Stephen Stanton and James Arnold Taylor all do great jobs replicating Obi-Wan. They're really great. James Arnold Taylor does a great Ewan McGregor impression, and Stephen Stanton does a great Alec Guinness impression. And finally, we see C-3PO in his gold plate armor. And there's Padme, and sporting quite a unique hairstyle. A hairstyle with two braids on each side of the head, making her look like her daughter, Princess Leia. I always found that detail to be kind of cool. And Natalie Portman has said that out of all the Star Wars prequels that she worked on, Revenge of the Sith would have to be her personal favorite. I totally get it, because she really does act her heart out in this. What's going on? I'm gonna be a father? Hey everyone, I'm gonna be a father! Did you hear the news? Darn it, how it should have ended. Now I have to make that joke. Now, all shots of C-3PO had the entire green screen set reflecting in his shiny gold armor, so digital effects artists in post-production had to digitally repaint C-3PO's armor frame by frame to remove any traces of the set. Thank goodness for that. And so we're introduced to Utapau. Apparently, Count Dooku spoke a total of 4 lines. Interesting. Oh my. Yeah, here's the full fact regarding General Grievous's original voice. Gary Oldman had agreed to be the voice of General Grievous, but pulled out of the movie because it was being made using actors who are not part of the Screen Actors Guild, of which Oldman is a member. George Lucas once quit the Writers Guild, Directors Guild, and Motion Picture Association of America over a dispute concerning Empire Strikes Back, and has not been able to work with the guild actors since. The role was read by Duncan Young on set, and finally voiced by Matthew Wood, who, being a Lucasfilm employee, submitted his reading under the name of Alan Smithy. But yeah, Christopher Lee filmed all of his scenes in 2 days. His filming schedule was moved up to follow pickup shots for Return of the King from Lord of the Rings in New Zealand. All of his scenes were shot in front of a green screen because the General's Quarters set had not yet been built. In fact, here's an interesting fact. John Williams, who is pretty much a staple of the Star Wars franchise with his compositions, passed on scoring Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire in favor of Revenge of the Sith and Memoirs of Geisha. Here's a fun fact. Steven Spielberg, Francis Ford Coppola, Robert De Niro, Elijah Wood, and Liam Neeson are all known to have visited the set of Revenge of the Sith during filming. I think that line of dialogue makes sense given all a lot of the conflict that occurred during the Clone Wars cartoon. I mean, I totally recommend you watch the Clone Wars cartoon. It does tie a lot together. And a subscription service offered by Lucasfilm offered fans the chance to watch various stages of the production via a webcam. Now, after principal photography was complete in 2003, George Lucas made even more changes in Anakin's character, sharpening Anakin's motivations for turning to the dark side. Lucas accomplished this rewrite through editing the principal footage and filming new scenes during pickups in London in 2004. In the previous versions, Anakin had a myriad of reasons for turning to the dark side, one of which was his sincere belief that the Jedi were plotting to take over the Republic. Although this is still intact in the finished movie, by revising and refilming many scenes, Lucas emphasized Anakin's desire to save Padme from death. Thus, in the version that made it to theaters, Anakin falls to the dark side primarily to save Padme. Now, Yoda had been created digitally since Attack of the Clones, and one of the puppets of Yoda created for the filming of The Phantom Menace was used as a reference point for the ease of actors on set during reshoots in late summer 2004. Of course, time in the Lucasfilm archives had not been kind to the puppet, which had acquired an incidentally comically contorted look on its face. But I can imagine Frank Oz with this puppet just interacting with the actors, because, Frank Oz is a puppeteer, and it's always great to hear Frank Oz as Yoda. The scene of Anakin and Padme at her Coruscant apartment, following his return to the planet early in the movie, was added long after principal photography. The scene was intended to lighten the mood of an often dark movie and helped with pacing in the movie. Now, Francis Ford Coppola, who was a good friend of George Lucas, suggested Christopher Neal to George Lucas to be the dialogue coach. Lucas said that given the emotional intensity of this movie, and the fact that he rarely has time to converse with the actors and actresses, it would be ideal for someone else to be there to get the strongest performances possible. Neal is in fact Coppola's nephew, and his father, Bill Neal, brother to Francis's sister Eleanor Coppola, worked for Industrial Light and Magic during the production of the original trilogy. What a nice city shot. Now, the film's costume designer is Trisha Brigger, who actually made two cameo appearances in The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. Now, Trisha Brigger did costumes for all three Star Wars prequels. She was practically the head costume designer for Lucasfilm until she retired from it. Now, other costume designs that Trisha Brigger worked on was for several episodes of the Young Indiana Jones TV show. She was also the costume designer for Outlander. I sometimes forget that Indiana Jones had a prequel spin-off TV series about a young Indiana Jones, and that it's practically a mini-series in of itself, since a lot of these are technically TV movie prequels, and I really should watch this. I should watch Young Indiana Jones, because I love Indiana Jones. Now, as you know, the final Revenge of the Sith is also the final Star Wars movie to be distributed by 20th Century Fox, which permanently held the rights to A New Hope, and they handed over the rights to the prequel trilogy and the final two installments of the original trilogy to Walt Disney Studios after May 2020 due to acquisition of Lucasfilm by the Walt Disney Company in 2012. However, with the purchase of 20th Century Fox by Disney in 2019, the ownership could officially change hands sooner, with Disney owning the entire film franchise. Of course, the first Star Wars film to not be distributed by 20th Century Fox was Star Wars: The Clone Wars, released in 2008, being distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures, the main owner of Cartoon Network. Now, the planet Utapau appears in the early drafts of two previous Star Wars movies. In Lucas's first draft of the first movie, Utapau was the home planet of Kain, Anakin, and Deke Starkiller. The planet's desert terrain eventually became the planet Tatooine. Utapau was also the name for Naboo in the first draft of the screenplay to The Phantom Menace. Revenge of the Sith is also the only Star Wars movie that did not receive an Academy Award nomination for Best Visual Effects. The only nomination was for its makeup, which it lost to The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And it's also one of only two Star Wars movies without English subtitles to translate alien languages, the other being The Empire Strikes Back. Now, George Lucas had previously promised fans that he would explain the mystery behind the erasure of the planet Kamino from the Jedi archives in the previous film. However, Lucas abandoned this plot thread in order to devote more time to Anakin's story, leaving the matter unresolved on film. As a compromise, Lucas permitted author James Luceno to explain the mystery of Kamino's erasure and the origins of the Clone Army in his expanded universe novel, Labyrinth of Evil. Is it Lucino or Lucino or Lucino? I'm not sure, actually. Now, prior to the official announcement of this movie's subtitle to be Revenge of the Sith, several rumors had circled about as to speculation of the final prequel's subtitle. Such speculations included possible subtitles as Rise of the Empire and The Creeping Fear. Imagine that. Star Wars, Episode 3, Rise of the Empire. Star Wars, Episode 3, The Creeping Fear. I don't know. The Creeping Fear sounds a little too campy. I mean, Rise of the Empire would have been a great alternate title as well. Now, the color palette of the movie was inspired by the paintings of Mark Rothko. George Lucas is a big fan of the painter. Now, Chancellor Palpatine is seen with Anakin walking into the Chancellor's office. The urns seen are called Spirit Urns, one of which, according to legend, holds the remains of his previous master and Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Plagueis. The post-production department began work during filming and continued until a few weeks before this movie was released. Now, George Lucas's decision to make General Grievous a cyborg was so that it foreshadowed Darth Vader's transformation into the infamous biomechanical suit that he needs to wear at the end of the movie. Over a period of... Oh, wait. Before I come to this scene, I guess I can talk about a few fun facts. The Opera House scene, one of the most best parts of this film. And I'm currently keeping my eye because, well, George Lucas makes a cameo appearance in the film as a blue-skinned alien. Yep, there he is. I think that's pretty cool. Now, actually, apparently, Ian McDiarmid was dealing with laryngitis while filming that scene. Ian McDiarmid has likened Palpatine in the movie to Iago in William Shakespeare's Othello, in the way he manipulates other characters to turn against each other, to their own destruction. McDiarmid has played Iago on stage, as has Ewan McGregor. James Earl Jones has played Othello. Where's that fact? Now, the scene where Palpatine tells Anakin about Darth Plagueis the Wise was originally going to be set in Palpatine's office, but George Lucas felt the characters had spent too much time there already, so he changed it to an opera box instead. According to production designer Gavin Boquet, the change was last minute. George suddenly invented an opera scene, so we needed a theater box, and we literally had only a day. So we took 3 of the chairs out of Palpatine's red office and did a quick repaint job, changed the back, and added fabric, all the things we would do in like 4 hours, even though in the world of multi-million-dollar filmmaking. Thanks to the early days of dressings, greeblies, and old aircraft parts, George loves the idea that if you stick a few things on and paint them silver with care and attention, they'll look great. And, I think that's fair. But I'm glad that it was an opera house. It definitely helps it stand out. Of course, George Lucas isn't the only one who cameoed in the Opera House. Anthony Daniels, without his C-3PO costume, made a cameo, as did George's daughters, Katie and Amanda, as well as several members of the special effects team, specifically Rob Coleman and John Knoll, amongst others, and several characters from earlier Star Wars movies. Now, over a period of several months, George Lucas approved hundreds of designs that eventually appeared in this movie. He rewrote entire scenes and action sequences to correspond to certain designs he had chosen. The designs were then shipped to pre-visualization to create moving CGI versions known as animatics. Ben Burtt edited these scenes with Lucas in order to pre-visualize what the movie would look like, before the scenes were even filmed. The pre-visualization footage featured a basic raw CGI environment with equally unprocessed CGI characters performing a scene, typically an action sequence. Steven Spielberg, who actually contributed a few things to Revenge of the Sith, was also allowed to assist the art and pre-visualization department's designs for several action sequences in this movie. Later, the pre-visualization and art department designs were sent to the production department to begin bringing the film out of the concept phase by building the various sets, props, and costumes. To determine the required sets, Lucas analyzed each scene with the staff to see which moments the actors would come in most contact with the set, warranting the set to be constructed. And finally, we see the planet of the Wookiees known as Kashyyyk. And the production team actually took inspiration of Kashyyyk from the much maligned Holiday Special, which I think makes sense. I think it's pretty cool. For Anakin's hairstyle, George Lucas said he can't look cute, he's gotta look rugged. Although no live-action location filming was done during principal photography, post-production filming was done in Thailand, Switzerland, and China to represent the background plates for the Wookiee planet of Kashyyyk. And also, Revenge of the Sith marks the first time Peter Mayhew returned as the character of Chewbacca since Return of the Jedi, so this was 22 years after he portrayed the character. And actually, the army of Wookiees only consisted of 10 actors in Wookiee suits, but they were all comped together to make it appear to be more than 10, which I think is a pretty creative perspective shot. I like this idea of using more than just using 10 regular actors and then just digitally duplicating them to make it appear like hundreds of people, especially if it's alien species. That's very creative. I like that. And yeah, I swear, that Wookiee's doing a Tarzan yell, like, "Ah!" Now, fun fact, Anakin Skywalker is depicted 3 times on the official movie poster, more than any other character in a Star Wars movie. Once portrayed by Hayden Christensen before Padme and Obi-Wan Kenobi, once in the lightsaber fight with Obi-Wan, and once in the background wearing his iconic Darth Vader helmet. Obi-Wan Kenobi is the runner-up with 2 depictions on the same movie poster. Fun fact, in the German dubbed version of Revenge of the Sith, the super battle droid that gets electrified by R2 has added dialogue. Right before he kicks R2, he utters the line, "Du spinnst wohl?" which is German for, "Are you crazy?" making the scene more humorous and child-friendly. And it feels fitting that this is the last time that Anakin and Obi-Wan speak to each other before Anakin's turn to the dark side, and appropriately, Anakin is in the dark side of the shade when he speaks to him, and it makes it rather sad. It's even more sad when you see, if you see the final episodes of Star Wars The Clone Wars, and we see Anakin and Ahsoka, his former apprentice, interact for the last time before she leaves for Mandalore, and, well, that's that, and it's the last time she ever sees Anakin. It's rather sad. Now, contrary to some belief, General Grievous, while trained in lightsaber combat by Dooku, knows nothing about the Force and is not Force sensitive. By saying trained in the Jedi arts, he means lightsaber combat only. Now, the entire movie was shot on the Sony HDC f950 high-definition camera, using Sony's HD Cam's SR digital video format. The camera retails for about $150,000. George Lucas has said that he plans to never shoot a movie on film again. However, that changed when Steven Spielberg insisted on using film for Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. The cans containing reels of this movie were falsely marked with the title The Bridge for at least one pre-release screening. Now, while shooting key dramatic scenes, George Lucas would often use an A camera and B camera, or the V technique, a process that involves shooting with two or more cameras at the same time in order to gain several angles of the same performance. Using the HD technology developed for the movie, the filmmakers were able to send footage to the editors the same day it was shot, a process that would require 24 hours had it been shot on film. Footage featuring the planet Mustafar was given to editor Roger Barton, who was on location in Sydney, Australia, cutting the climactic duel. All other footage was forwarded to lead editor Ben Burt at Skywalker Ranch in California. Now, Julius Caesar was a major influence behind Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, which adds up perfectly. Now, Oscar-winning screenwriter Tom Stoppard did a script polish for the movie, something he's done on many Lucasfilm productions. Stoppard, who wrote such plays as Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, Jumpers, The Real Thing, Arcadia, The Invention of Love, The Coast of Utopia, and Leopoldstadt, was arguably the most lauded British playwright of the second half of the 20th century. Of course, it makes sense that John DiMaggio was rumored to be a candidate to voice General Grievous. I kind of wish that he did. And apparently, the creature that Obi-Wan is riding its name is Bola. How interesting. The first teaser trailer that was released on November 5th, 2004 was codenamed Sand Dogs. Now, the clone trooper vehicles featured during the Battle of Kashyyyk are the 10-wheeled HV-6 Juggernaut armored personal carriers, while the mini two-legged AT-RT Lightwalkers and in the AT-AP Podwalkers are forerunners to the Imperial AT-ST Miniwalkers featured in The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. In fact, the Juggernaut, also known as the Turbo Tank, is based on the designs for the AT-AT Joe Johnston made for Star Wars Episode V, The Empire Strikes Back. I sometimes forget that, I sometimes forget that before he was a director, directing films like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Joe Johnston was a crew member on Industrial Light and Magic, working on the original Star Wars trilogy. And he says the line! Now, George Lucas originally wanted Sammo Cambo Hung to be the lightsaber fight choreographer, but I guess that never happened. Now, Revenge of the Sith is the only movie in the Star Wars canon not to have been released on on NTSC VHS. It was, however, released on VHS in PAL regions. Now, during the Battle of Coruscant, much of the Republic ship D's design is meant to foreshadow the galactic civil war. The Republic's Venator star cruisers are even closer in design to the Imperial Star Destroyers than the Acclamator's class ships of the previous films. During the action prologue, they still sport the Republic's red and white paint job, but by the film's denouement, they're depicted in Imperial Grey. The ARC-170 starfighters are precursors of the Rebel Alliance's X-Wings, larger and with a different kind of splitting wing. The briefly glimpsed V-Wings have vertical wingtip stabilizers similar to the TIE Fighter, and are more prominently featured in the film's denouement, alongside the Venator's new grey paint job. The fighters flown by Anakin and Obi-Wan share the windshield design of the TIE Fighter. As one final reminder to the audience of what is to become the Republic, not to mention Anakin Skywalker, the S-foils on their fighters deploy and take the shape of a pair of curved vertical wingtip stabilizers, evoking the design of the Darth Vader's TIE Advanced. In Czech dubbing, Czech, Czech as in like the Czech country, Czech, Czech. In Czech dubbing, both Darth Sidious's apprentices have the same voice. Bohumil Svark dubbed Darth Vader in the original trilogy, and in this movie as well. He was also the regular dubber for Sir Christopher Lee, including Count Dooku. Also, Revenge of the Sith is the first Star Wars movie to ever be rated PG-13. All previous Star Wars films by that point were originally rated PG. But trust me, this film earns its PG-13 rating. I tell you what. Also, Revenge of the Sith is the only PG-13 Star Wars movie to not be distributed by Disney. And with Revenge of the Sith, the Star Wars franchise broke $4 billion at the global box office. Also, General Grievous is the only villain in the Star Wars movies who does not have a red lightsaber, since he keeps those of the Jedi he killed. And what I find interesting is in Palpatine's office, he's actually looking at plans of the Death Star. That's an interesting detail. I like that. Also, technically, Palpatine did slip that he was the Sith in the opera scene, which makes sense. You'd think Anakin would be able to deduce that, but, movie's got a movie. An internet hoax said that John Rhys Davies, who is best known for playing Sala in the Indiana Jones movies, was considered for the role of General Grievous. Now, LEGO Star Wars the video game was developed concurrently with this movie and was released 2 months before it. Thus, the game developers had only pre-production material to rely on in adapting the movie. The game includes some elements that were cut from the final movie, such as clones disguising themselves as Jedi. Now, a bootleg version was released in Shanghai, China. An American bought it and found the English subtitles were mostly machine translated from simplified Chinese to English and back again, creating hilarious translations. Other translations were added by the Chinese translator. It is commonly known as Star Wars, The Third Gathers, The Backstroke of the West. Now, George Lucas and producer Rick McCallum were auditioning basketball players and similarly tall actors to wear the Vader suit, but Hayden Christensen requested that he do it instead. I just very politely asked if it was possible, and George and Rick, and the kind people that they are, allowed me the privilege. Which is great. Now, the first draft of the script also explained the mystery surrounding Anakin's conception. In the confrontation scene between Anakin and Palpatine, where Palpatine confesses to Anakin he is Darth Sidious, he would also explain that he used the technique of his master, Darth Plagueis, to use the Force to will the midichlorians and starting the cell divisions that created Anakin, even going as far as calling himself Anakin's father. This explanation was later deemed unnecessary by George Lucas and too reminiscent of the big twist from Empire Strikes Back and subsequently cut. A wise decision. In the first draft of George Lucas's screenplay, the movie was to open with a huge montage sequence showing the end of various battles of the Clone Wars on 7 different planets across the galaxy. Each planet was to be distinctly different from the other and was described as Bridge World, Ring World, Crystal World, and Kelp World, amongst others. This idea evolved into the sequence where we see various Jedi, spoilers. Now, 4 planets made it into this montage. Migito, Crystal World, Felucia, Salukami, and Kato Nemoidia, Bridge World. Now, the movie's title, Revenge of the Sith, refers to the Sith getting their revenge, something to which was already alluded in The Phantom Menace. It is, however, never explicitly mentioned in any movie for what they are actually seeking revenge for. In official Star Wars canon, the Sith Order emerged from a group of Jedi who challenged the old doctrine that self-sacrifice and restraint were the way to access the Force. Due to the belief that they could harness its powers through their violent passions, these Sith Lords were exiled from the Jedi Order. The Sith subsequently banded together according to the Rule of Two, a succession of masters and apprentices with the common goal to conquer the Galactic Republic, and to exact their revenge against the Jedi Order for once expelling them. Also, I think it's funny how how literally Obi-Wan says, so uncivilized after killing General Grievous. It's a nice callback to the stormtroopers being uncivilized weaponry. Once again, Mace Windu being a hard ass to Anakin, who was never really welcome with with Anakin from the beginning. You know, it's interesting that the original idea of Palpatine creating Anakin using dark force magic is very similar to a scene in Alejandro Jorodensky's famed attempt to adapt Frank Herbert's Dune, where the Duke Leto, whose character was castrated in Jorodowski's script, would have donated a drop of his blood to his concubine, the Lady Jessica, who would have used it with a secret method of the Bean Gesserit to create Paul Atreides in her womb, and later Paul's younger sister on Arrakis. Fun fact, in the Star Wars universe, the slang Wild Bantha Chase describes a pointless activity distracting from a desired objective. Kind of like a wild goose chase. Also, Revenge of the Sith is the first Star Wars movie in which Palpatine ever fights with a lightsaber. And it's also one of the few lightsaber duels in which we see four different lightsaber colors fight throughout. That color being red, purple, green, and blue. Kind of cool. And it's sad how he was able to take out two. Kit Fisto lasted the second longest. And I have to give props. Ian McDiarmid actually did his own stunts for this lightsaber scene. And let me tell you, he wasn't originally supposed to, but due to some last minute stuff that occurred, George Lucas said, "Okay, Ian, you're doing the stunts," and it was quite physically demanding for for Ian McDiarmid, but it's quite convincing. It's definitely one hell of a fight. Oh, Anakin, you fool. Sorry, I'm just admiring all of this entire choreographed scene. Boom! Oh, he's cornered like a Bothrat. Am I using that correctly? Probably not. Well, he's cornered. That's my main thing. And originally, Anakin was supposed to simply watch them fight, feeling constantly conflicted. And Palpatine even would have used Anakin's lightsaber. I remember seeing this scene and I was almost kind of frightened. I mean, it was intense, especially intense due to Ian's acting, because, Ian is the man when it comes to playing Palpatine. Probably one of the few times he gave sage advice. And so we see how Palpatine got his official appearance in the original trilogy, quite disfigured. I mean, he's not wrong. That's manipulative. I remember being so shocked when this happened. Oof. And actually, the final shot, of course, George Lucas told Ian McDiarmid to not hold back when screaming unlimited power. And yeah, he pretty much, he does not hold back. And I love this behind the scenes of Samuel L. Jackson landing on a blue pad after the scene. And when Palpatine just lays on his back and going, that was because he was exhausted after doing all of that, which I totally get. And of course, important fact about Mace Windu's death. Now, Samuel L. Jackson knew that Mace Windu was going to die by the end of the prequel trilogy, and he told George Lucas that when Mace Windu dies, he better not go out like a punk. And, George Lucas made sure he didn't go out like a punk, and it's definitely one of the most shocking deaths ever. Which is, it's shocking and climactic. Definitely not a punk death. Now, the makeup department for Revenge of the Sith consisted of 31 makeup artists with prosthetics, creatures, hair, and so on and so forth. The supervisor was Nikki Gooley, and the makeup designer was Charmaine Fuller. I'll tell you who did Anakin's burnt appearance later. With Palpatine's disfigured appearance, it's hard to pinpoint how many hours it took to apply the makeup for the Sidious makeup, but it's great to see that it's actual practical makeup effects for this. It's actually pretty cool. Now, other works of makeup that Nikki Gooley worked on were makeup and hair design for the first Matrix movie, makeup supervision for Ghost Ship, hair and makeup design for the 2003 Peter Pan movie, hair design and makeup design for the first Narnia movie and Superman Returns, key makeup and hair design for X-Men Origins, Wolverine, hair and makeup design for Mortal Kombat 2021, and department head hair design for Hunger Games, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Uh-oh. Yoda feels a terrible disturbance in the Force, as if the dark is swallowing the light. Now, other works of makeup that Charmaine Fuller worked on were the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, the creature makeup for Doom, the movie, hair and makeup for the Sherlock Holmes duology, crowd makeup for Clash of the Titans remake, the Maleficent duology, crowd hair and makeup supervising for Wonder Woman, crowd hair makeup for the Aladdin remake and Spider-Man Far From Home, and also makeup for Beetlejuice, and the Snow White remake. Please don't boo me. I'm just stating a fact. It is out of a civil war 19 years later. Now, after the film's release, Samuel L. Jackson has repeatedly said that he believes that Mace Windu is still alive and that he would love to play the character again if he was ever given the opportunity. When the lightning comes out of Palpatine's fingers, it bounces off the lightsaber and back onto himself, causing his skin to look much older because Mace Windu is holding the lightsaber sideways. The other characters throughout the series who get electrocuted don't have lightning bounce off anything, making their bodies the same. Also, the way Mace holds the lightsaber is different than a similar scene in Episode 2 when Obi-Wan holds the weapon upward, while Count Dooku is shooting out lightning from his fingers. This absorbs the lightning inward rather than bouncing back. This also rotates the death scenes in Episode 6 where Darth Vader saves Luke and kills Palpatine. Here he saves Palpatine and Mace Windu dies. This polar opposite creates a birth of Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine in 3, and a death of them in 4. Now, Jedi Master Shaak Ti was originally scripted to die during Anakin and Obi-Wan's rescue of Chancellor Palpatine. A scene was shot where they find her captured by General Grievous's feet, who then kills her by stabbing her in the back with a lightsaber. This scene was cut, and another one was shot during additional filming where she is meditating during the attack on the Jedi Temple, and is stabbed in the back by Anakin. Although the scene is deleted from the movie, it is later confirmed this to be the character's canonical death. Uh-oh. This is where shit hits the fan. And so, the darkest scene in the film occurs. I remember first seeing this in the film. I was so shocked and heartbroken. I actually thought that Yoda's heart came out. It was so dark, but really it was just his cane falling down. But this is definitely one of the darkest scenes. And Steven Spielberg actually contributed to the Order 66 montage, suggesting that Aayla Secura's death and Plo Koon's death both be off-screen, kind of adding to the tragedy, because you know what they say, less is more. Yep, Order 66 just happened. And it's actually, it is one of the saddest death scenes. And I have a confession to make. When I was rewatching Revenge of the Sith after watching Star Wars: The Clone Wars, I actually mistook Aayla Secura for Ahsoka Tano due to the montrals on her hair. But nope, a different character, different species. Ahsoka Tano is a Togruta, and Aayla Secura is a Twi'lek. Two totally different characters. But yeah, Yoda can feel a great disturbance in the Force, as many of his Jedi brethren are all killed. Yeah, this is tragic. It's even more tragic that Ahsoka never got to see Plo Koon again, since in Star Wars lore, Plo Koon was practically like a father figure to Ahsoka. Although, if Mace Windu really did survive, well, they would have to. I'd like to see how he would be able to survive Order 66. I can almost hear reluctance in this clone trooper's voice, or maybe not. And I like that the Clone Wars was able to add a little bit of tragedy to Order 66, as we got to know these clone troopers, seeing them succumb to Order 66 was heartbreaking after we got to know them. And there's Chewie. And originally, Han Solo was supposed to appear in this, kind of like as a teenager, but that never happened. Also, you might find this scene is pretty dark, but the fact that here's how he did was Hayden Christensen made the kid jump back. He just simply said "boo," and the kid just jumped back in shock. I think that's pretty funny. And originally, Boba Fett was supposed to appear during the Order 66 montage to kill Mace Windu, but George Lucas realized how convoluted that was going to be, so he ended up scrapping that idea, and so we saw how Mace Windu actually died. But of course, aspects of those ideas did later come to fruition when Boba Fett attempted to kill Mace Windu in a few episodes of Star Wars The Clone Wars as revenge for Mace killing Jango. Were they going to kill Bail? Also, fun fact: this young Padawan Jedi who fights off the clone troopers before getting gunned down was actually portrayed by George Lucas's son, Jet Lucas. I didn't know this, but now I do. It's pretty sad, but he went out fighting. Now, I think the reason the clone troopers were threatening Bail was because Bail had such a favorable relationship with the Jedi, and so Palpatine saw him as a threat, which pretty much makes sense. After all, Bail is quite the rebellious one. Sorry. I have been sitting for over 85 minutes while recording this, crisscross applesauce, and it is not comfortable. Oh, the poor Wookiee. And I also like how the clone troopers' armor starts evolving and starts resembling the classic stormtrooper armor that we later see in the original trilogy. That's a pretty cool detail. And I like that Yoda's theme starts playing as he leaves Kashyyyk. And so, Chewie leaves one heck of a life after Revenge of the Sith. But yeah, that would be the last we would see of Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca until he returned 10 years later in The Force Awakens. Rest in peace, Peter Mayhew. You'll always be our favorite Wookiee. Oh, I also forgot to mention, speaking of Ayla Secura, I guess I can talk about her actress. I actually thought that Ayla Secura was portrayed through CG, but I was wrong. She was actually portrayed through an actual person with makeup effects. And Ayla Secura, and fun fact about the character Ayla Secura, she was a last-minute addition to Episode 2, as she originally originated from a Dark Horse comic book. And George Lucas liked the character, so he decided to add her digitally into the film. And Ayla Secura was portrayed by Amy Allen. Amy Allen is actually a production assistant for Industrial Light and Magic, having worked on Pearl Harbor, AI, Gangs of New York, Jurassic Park 3, and Elektra. She's also assisted Michael Bay many times. Oh, that isn't smoke. That's steam. Steam from the steamed clams we're having. Mmm, steamed clams. Famous last words. Apparently, Anthony Daniels wore slippers during a lot of his scenes in as C-3PO because he found the C-3PO shoes to be quite uncomfortable. I mean, I don't blame him. Apparently, the Order 66 scene was originally much more violent and upsetting and featured the entirety of the Jedi Temple massacre. But George Lucas cut those scenes out because he was worried that they would bump the film up to an R rating. I mean, that's a good call. Of course, Darth Sidious' Order 66 to exterminate a Jedi is a reference to the real-life Executive Order 9066, made on February 19th, 1942 by the President of the U.S., Franklin D. Roosevelt. The most famous consequence of this was the evacuation of all persons of the West Coast deemed a potential threat to national security, over 100,000 Japanese Americans, to internment camps for suspected treason. Ah, yes. Fun fact about Mustafar. Not only the images of the volcanic eruption on Mustafar is real footage of Mount Etna in Italy, which was erupting at the time of production while the crew was filming backdrop photography in Italy for the movie, per Lucasfilm editor J.W. Rinsler's book The Making of Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. Masameda does not sound happy. Aside from the comparison between Order 66 and Pope Clement V's orchestrating the deaths of the Knights Templar, Order 66 is also similar to another dark time in political military history, the Night of the Long Knives, where Adolf Hitler orchestrated a similar purge with code words and sealed documents, ordering assets of his countless political enemies and subsequent murders by firing squads. The Order 66 sequence, where the Jedi are massacred simultaneously across the galaxy, is very similar to a real-life historical event involving the Knights Templar, where, on Friday the 13th, sealed orders from the Pope were opened and accused the Order of the Knights Templar of being idol worshippers and anti-Christian, and that they were to be exterminated. This event is famously dramatized in the cinematic adaptation of Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code, as well as the original book. Oh man, that's so sinister. The way he just automatically shuts that down. Shuts the doors. I mean, sometimes I pretend that I have the force and you move my hands to activate the motion sensitive doors. I do that sometimes when I'm at work at Home Depot. Yoda's not happy. Yeah, Jedi Rebellion. Also, I like that Padme's hair ponytail looks like the Rebel Alliance symbol, making her the mother of the Rebel Alliance. Oh, you can hear the heartbreak in Yoda's voice. Oh yeah, always use the deformity to gain sympathy. Kind of like how Donald Trump tried to gain sympathy with the assassination attempt. Oh yeah, Donald Trump's assassination attempt was totally staged. You can't change my mind. I love the way he glares with the yellow eyes. That's so badass. I mean, Hayden Christensen, it's like begged to wear them. He insisted on wearing them, according to Lucas, and George was nice to let him do it. And so Padme says the most relevant line ever. This is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause. Look how relevant that is, because fuck Donald Trump. Bye bye, Newt Gunray. And he's not wrong. Yep. Oh yeah, the sequence in which Palpatine announces the Empire while Darth Vader kills the Separatist leaders was modeled after the famous baptism sequence in The Godfather. And fun fact, George Lucas was an assistant editor on that movie. And the infant in that sequence was Sofia Coppola, who directed Hayden Christensen in The Virgin Sewer Slides and appeared in The Phantom Menace. In fact, Hayden Christensen was cast as Anakin Skywalker based on his performance in The Virgin Sewer Slides. Sorry that I have to say an alternate term for the other S word, but I have no choice. Don't want to be demonetized. I also find it an interesting detail that this music of Obi-Wan telling Padme that about Anakin's betrayal. It's like this music would later be featured in Star Wars: The Clone Wars during the Order 66 sequence when Ahsoka is surviving Order 66. It's a very tragic music, but I like it. And of course, I kind of wish that they kept the scene where Obi-Wan tells, "Oh yeah, I knew about you and Anakin being intimate." It's like, you can't fool me, but I just let him do it, you know? What? This dialogue of saying, Anakin's the father, I'm so sorry, it's actually still is tragedy behind it. And Mustafar was meant to be George Lucas's vision of hell in the Star Wars universe. Which sounds about right. It's very dark and sinister. Once again, we're getting great non-verbal acting on Hayden Christensen's end. Because I believe he's Darth Vader before he got the suit of armor. What could possibly go wrong? Well, let's hope that when C-3PO got his memory swiped, he didn't forget to learn how to fly. The Clone Wars are done. Peace and justice to the galaxy. Yeah, right. Did they ever shut down those droids? I guess they did off screen. I also remember when this scene was parodied in the MTV Movie Awards with Jimmy Fallon pretending to be Anakin. It was kind of funny in its own parody way. But it still is one of the best scenes. It's the most well acted, at least in my opinion, and I remember this scene for how heartbreaking it is. Imagine if this was released when Donald Trump won. He'd say, "That's fake news." Yeah, famous last words. Now, in the video game adaptation, there's an alternate ending where Anakin kills Obi-Wan and then he kills Emperor Palpatine, therefore ruling the galaxy. Whether Padme would have safely given birth to Luke and Leia in that video game is never explicitly mentioned. I kind of wish that someone mentioned that. I love how in the background that we hear a bit of the Darth Vader theme. Bad timing, Obi. Very bad timing. Ooh, this is where he takes it too far. And now I'm thinking of a parody comic where Padme says, "Harder, Annie," and thus disorienting Anakin. Sorry. You have done that yourself. Sorry, I have memorized that scene so many times, and the dialogue as well. This is not a happy reunion. There's a tragic irony to it. And of course, if you watched the Clone Wars cartoon, there would actually be some meaning behind Anakin saying all that. Because, Anakin has seen the Jedi turn into hypocrites and turn corrupt during the Clone Wars. So, Anakin is not exactly wrong about that. Do what I must. Now, Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen trained for 2 months in fencing and fitness in preparation for this climactic battle. As a result of their practice, the speed at which Kenobi and Vader engaged a duel in the completed movie is the speed in which it was filmed and was not digitally accelerated. That's quite impressive, and I really respect McGregor and Christensen being so dedicated to film all of that fight choreography and the lightsaber duel. Yeah, he's not happy about that. Boom! Now, I like that this is simultaneously happening. It's like Vader's fighting Kenobi, Sidious is fighting Yoda. It's really cool. And it was really cool getting to rewatch this on the big screen because, yeah, like I said, I had watched Revenge of the Sith in theaters the day before I recorded my commentary for Empire Strikes Back. Apparently, Ewan McGregor wanted to play one of the Red Guards in the film. Whether that actually happened, we're not sure. But I do know that the Red Guards are actually are clone troopers. Empty this bitches. Yeet. Let me try it with the Yoda voice. Empty this bitch is. Yeet. Yeah, why leave? You know, technically, by all means, Hayden Christensen isn't the only Star Wars actor that I met at Emerald City Comic Con, because I met Tim Curry at Emerald City Comic Con, and he counts as a Star Wars actor because he also voiced Palpatine in he also voiced Palpatine on Star Wars: The Clone Wars. And I think so. It's actually pretty cool that I met both these guys at Emerald City Comic Con. Now, Chancellor Palpatine's strategy for maintaining power is known to political scientists and is called perpetual war. He comes to power through conflict with the Trade Federation, gains greater privileges through the Clone War, and solidifies his position through war on the Jedi. And according to Ahmed Best, who was best known for voicing Jar Jar Binks, who didn't even get a speaking role in in Revenge of the Sith, which is kind of funny. Well, according to Ahmed Best, there actually is a deleted part of Palpatine's monologue towards turning the Republic into the Galactic Empire. According to Ahmed Best, the deleted scene, before he crowned himself Emperor, Palpatine mockingly thanked Jar Jar Binks for granting him the emergency powers that allowed him to take over the galaxy. Which, yeah, I could see why a lot of people ended up hating Jar Jar after that. Of course, I don't hate Jar Jar. He was manipulated. He ain't at fault. But I still think the idea of Jar Jar being a Sith, that's a hilarious theory. That's some funny shit right there. And I also like that during this, while Yoda and Sidious are fighting, we can hear a Duel of the Fates playing. It feels perfectly appropriate. In 2007, Dr. Eric Buey, a psychiatrist in Toulouse, France, co-wrote a study that diagnosed Anakin Skywalker as having borderline personality disorder. When the authors reported their findings at the annual meeting of the American Psychiatric Association, they stated that Skywalker fit the diagnosis criteria: difficulty controlling anger, stress-related breaks with reality, impulsivity, obsession with abandonment, and a pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships, characterized by alternating between extremes of ideation and devaluation. How interesting. It's so cool how Yoda catches that lightning and defiantly stares at Palpatine as they're both pushed back. And, well, this definitely shows that Yoda technically lost by default. Now, the scene of Vader and Obi-Wan using the Force push on each other and knocking each other back originally had a force field graphic effect added, but George Lucas was not satisfied with its inclusion, thus the final shot did not have this effect added. Now, Ian McDiarmid is doubled by a trained stuntman for his lightsaber battles and more physically demanding shots, such as when Palpatine scrambles away from Mace Windu. As with Sir Christopher Lee, computer effects were used to put the actor's face over the face of the stunt double. McDiarmid stated in numerous interviews that he was pleased that his character, even if not himself personally, was finally involved in some action sequences. For the source fight between Windu and Sidious, however, the demands for camera angles and close-ups meant that stunt coordinator Nick Gillard had to teach the two actors the entire fight sequence, which was then shot partly with the stunt performers and partly with Jackson and McDiarmid. Fun fact, during production, the Mon Calamari opera was nicknamed Squid Lake. The planet Mustafar's similarity to the Arabic name Mustafa roughly translates to the Chosen One. What a full circle. The Chosen One dies on Mustafar and is reborn as Darth Vader. Also, Revenge of the Sith marks the first and only time that audiences see two lightsabers of the same color fight and hit each other. Now, Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor began rehearsing their climactic lightsaber duel long before it was shot. They trained extensively with stunt coordinator Nick Gillard to memorize and perform their duel together. And a process of applying chrome to rubber was developed during production, allowing lightsaber hilts to be made of rubber and used in stunts without hurting the actors. Smart. Now, Bail Organa's Corellian Corvette, the one with the white interior walls, the Tantive-4, then a CR-70 model, was later retrofitted into a CR-90 model and repainted. It was given to Princess Leia and is the same ship that was captured at the beginning of A New Hope. Now, although all but one of her scenes were deleted from this movie, Genevieve O'Reilly reprised her role as Mon Mothma for Rogue One, a Star Wars story. It's nice to know that Lucasfilm still considered her after she only played a brief role as the young Mon Mothma. Very considerate. And if you're good to Lucasfilm, Lucasfilm is good to you. That's a great nonverbal glare. Whoop. Now, stuntman Nick Gilliard says that the idea for the classic moment, "I have the high ground," came when he and Hayden Christensen, who were headed out to grab a bite during filming in Australia. "We would eat in this restaurant every night that was up a hill," Gilliard explained. "You could walk up the road and down to this restaurant, or you could walk across a steep bank to it. For me, I always want the most direct route, so I'm going for the bank. And Hayden hates walking on a slope, so that was in my mind about the higher ground. If I can get Anakin on the slope, Obi might have a chance." So yeah, it's an in-joke. And so, with Anakin's eyes turning yellow, it is his final transformation, final part of him turning into Darth Vader. Yep. Yep. And so, with Anakin catching fire, we see how Darth Vader got disfigured, and which explains his disfigured appearance at the end of at the end of Return of the Jedi, and it actually justifies the film's PG-13 rating. How sad. Now, Obi-Wan says he will not kill Vader to Yoda after discovering who was behind the massacre in the Jedi Temple. On Mustafar, he does keep his word, leaving it up to the Force. Now, while throughout the entire Star Wars saga, Sidious has shown himself to be a ruthless and manipulative monster, he does show a rare moment of compassion in this film when he recovers the horrendously burned Anakin's body from Mustafar. He even goes so far as to seemingly comfort his apprentice physically with a hand on the side of his scarred head, almost like a father would comfort a son. Quite appropriate, given that this film was to originally address the virgin birth of Anakin and reveal that Palpatine used the dark side to manipulate the cells in Shmi Skywalker's womb to create Anakin, thus figuratively and literally being Anakin's father in all ways except biologically. And of course, and I also like that it's a callback, him putting his hand on Anakin's forehead as a callback to Obi-Wan doing the same to Luke in A New Hope. And finally, I can talk about the burnt makeup. It was Dave Elsey who was responsible for the makeup to Anakin's burnt appearance. Now, Dave Elsey has done makeup and creature effects for Little Shop of Horrors, Alien 3, 13 episodes of Farscape, Where the Wild Things Are, Hellraiser 1 and Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, the Wolfman remake from 2010, Ghost Rider, Beast's makeup for X-Men First Class, Men in Black 3, Warm Bodies, the Beauty and the Beast remake, prosthetics for John Wick 4, prosthetics for Aquaman 2, and prosthetic supervision for The Substance. The makeup for Anakin's burnt appearance took over 3 hours to apply due to the prosthetics being delicate to use, which I find quite interesting. And if you have the original Revenge of the Sith DVD, they have this behind the scenes of Anakin's transformation into Darth Vader and his eventual redemption. And what you actually see some behind the scenes footage of Hayden Christensen wearing the Darth Vader makeup and also wearing blue screen clothing for his arms and legs to make his arms and legs digitally disappear. Which is logically stupid, even if it is poetic. These two heartbeats. But yeah, it's like I really like this. This is like the perfect marriage between practical effects and makeup effects. I like that Anakin's burnt body is practical makeup effects, while the prosthetic arms are done with blue screen, and it really does hold up to this day. It's pretty cool, you know. Yeah. And apparently, Baby Luke and Baby Leia are played by the same actor, the infant son of one of the crew members, which is that's cute. It's a girl. And if you look closely, you can almost see Anakin non-verbally saying, "Help me, Padme." That's what he's saying. And you know, I never get over seeing that mask being put on Hayden on Anakin. Thus, and Anakin dies. And in his place is reborn Darth Vader. And I like that it features Qui-Gon, that the music consists of the funeral music for Qui-Gon when he's ceremonially cremated. Now, Padme, in early drafts of the script, Padme would have survived her confrontation with Darth Vader and gone into hiding with the infant Leia on Alderaan. Though this plot point would have more closely matched Leia's recollection of her mother in Return of the Jedi, George Lucas deemed it problematic, as Padme's death would have to occur off-screen, leaving her story unresolved. Lucas opted in later drafts to have Padme die as a result of her injuries after confronting Vader, thus bringing her story to a satisfying end. And if you stop, and of course, Vader being on that medical bed, transforming into Vader, is practically a callback to the 1931 Frankenstein movie starring Boris Karloff. It remains debatable. People debate whether James Earl Jones voiced Vader in this, but I will double down and say he voiced Vader in this, and there is no way you are going to change my mind. And it was great to hear him voice Vader again. Even if the no might seem corny, but I like it. I've gotten used to it. It's part of the movie, like it or not. And of course, this scene of with Bail Organa, Yoda, and Obi-Wan, it's all practical. It's no green screen. It was actually hand built, which I respect. It's really cool seeing Jimmy Smits in other stuff like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and In the Heights. Pretty cool. Now, George Lucas had previously implied that this movie would explain why Jedis can eventually return as Force ghosts in the original trilogy, but not the prequel trilogy. In the scene where Yoda is seen meditating on a secret asteroid base just before Bail Organa informs him of Obi-Wan's return with Padme, he was originally meant to speak with Qui-Gon Jinn, who is heard but not seen. Liam Neeson has said that he recorded dialogue as Qui-Gon to further explain the concept of a Jedi communicating from beyond the grave. The dialogue was not included in the finished movie, nor did it appear in the deleted scenes section of the DVD, but an unfinished version was included in the Blu-ray release box set. Although this movie only hints that Qui-Gon's Force Ghost can teach others Jedis this ability, an answer to the mystery was finally given in the 6th season of Star Wars The Clone Wars, which also explained why Qui-Gon could not physically appear until the last episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Disney Plus TV series. And, C-3PO also gets also has the last word in this movie, the finishing lines. I didn't realize this until I rewatched it in theaters. It's kind of funny because in A New Hope, he actually gets the first speaking lines. As Palpatine once said, ironic. Now, originally, Grand Moff Tarkin was supposed to appear with Peter Cushing portraying him through archive footage, but they couldn't get the shots right, so instead they got Australian actor Wayne Pygram to portray a young Grand Moff Tarkin in that scene, and that's who plays him. And I gotta give him credit; he actually does look like a young Peter Cushing. And, honestly, I kind of wish that they had brought back Wayne Pygram to play Grand Moff Tarkin in Rogue One with the prosthetic makeup effects. It probably would have looked less uncanny, and I think a lot of people would have agreed with that. And of course, Wayne Pygram was also in the sci-fi series Farscape. I really should watch Farscape since it's got the involvement of Jim Henson's Creature Shop. He was also in an episode of Lost. Bet you didn't know that. But yeah, when I remember watching this at an AMC theater when I was 8, I was an emotional mess. I know. Who knew that an 8-year-old could be easily impressed? And actually, this is the second time that the scene was filmed. The first time was with a stuntman because Ewan McGregor was busy with something else, but they ended up reshooting it for this so that to feature Ewan McGregor. And I think it's the best. This reshoot's the best one. And we'd see these actors again nearly 20 years later in Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Disney Plus TV series, which I like. Yeah, I said what I said. I'm willing to defend it. And so, there is hope in the midst of darkness. As we look into the binary suns of Tatooine. And that is Revenge the Sith. And I must say, 20 years later, Revenge of the Sith still holds up. It is still the best of the Star Wars prequels, in my opinion, and I think a lot of Star Wars fans agree with that. And even I agree with it. I have like I said, I have such a soft spot for this film. And somehow it's remained relevant even by today's standards. And it may be clunky and clumsy on occasion, but I love it despite the film's flaws. It's like I love all Star Wars, like a lot of people, and it's like I don't discriminate. And it feels great to actually talk about this film on the film's 25th. I'm sorry, on the film's 20th anniversary. Just feels genuinely great to talk about it. And this was a lot of fun to do. But anyway, thanks for listening to my audio commentary. I'm going to go back to doing non-Marvel Cinematic Universe Marvel movies after this. But, I might do some more stuff like that. Anyway, be sure to like and subscribe. And may the Force be with you. Happy 20th anniversary to Revenge of the Sith.